Yeah, just wait. Yeah, maybe when I finish talking to the people here. How's that? I might. I'll have to ponder it, but I will put it on my list for due consideration. I have said repeatedly, I want those emails out. Nobody has a bigger interest in getting them released than I do. I have said publicly, I'm repeating it here in front of all of you today, I want them out as soon as they can get out.
But will you demand it? Will you demand it?
Well, they're not mine. They belong to the State Department. So the State Department has to go through its process, but as much as they can expedite that process, that's what I'm asking them to do.
Well, Hillary Clinton, after 28 days, I think, not talking to reporters, took some questions today after promising to do so, after Ed Henry asked a question during her roundtable, talking there about the State Department, claiming it was going to take until January for them to come out with these State Department emails, the ones that Hillary Clinton provided the State Department, 55,000 pages of them. A federal judge ordered today that by next week they must have a timetable for rolling them out sooner in coming weeks. Let's start there. Let's bring in our panel. Syndicated columnist George Will, Ron Fournier, senior political columnist of National Journal, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer.
And allow me to introduce our beloved anchor, who happens to be the best-selling author of the book, Special Heart, A Journey of Faith, Hope, Courage, and Love. Wonderful, the book. 5 weeks on the bestseller list. Out today in paperback. Get it for your dad. Get it now.
See how we did that?
Oh, that was
very
good.
smooth.
That was good.
That was very smooth.
But I owe you.
How many times have I done that for you? That's good. Thank you. Let's start with this. Hillary Clinton today, what did you take away from it?
Well, first of all, the fact that she has allowed what we will call her strategic reticence to become the issue of the campaign indicates, not for the first time, how little aptitude she has for her chosen profession, which is public life. Second, she didn't say an awful lot, except that she wants the emails that she obviously wanted to conceal for a long time. There's no other reason for having her own private servers. She now wants them out as fast as possible. The problem is, we have seen from the IRS and its complicity with the Justice Department how long you can take if you really want to drag your feet. And there's no question but that they could get the emails out a lot faster if they really wanted to. Question is, why don't they?
Well, I mean, I was struck, Ron, by this line. Why don't you demand it? Will you demand it? She says, well, they're not mine. They belong to the State Department. Now, wait a second. They were hers. 55,000 pages were turned over to the State Department. The ones that we don't know about were erased.
No, I literally spit my coffee on my laptop when she said that. Literally spit trick. It's inconceivable. It's laughable. She treated them like they were her own emails. She kept them in her basement in a server that violated White House policy, and then only handed over the ones to her State Department that she wanted us to see. She cherry-picked them. And now pretending that she can't, she's got copies, I presume. She could have brought them to the news conference. So that was totally unbelievable. It was totally unbelievable when she says that there's no conflict of interest between, you know, her doing speeches for folks who are doing business with government. Well, of course that's a conflict of interest. She also said that she wants the emails out. Well, I can't believe that, because again, if she wanted the emails out, she would have given them to us at the news conference. So it's this whole trust and credibility issue that is just, it's becoming an anvil in her campaign.
Well, and the fact that a federal judge had to then say to the State Department, no, that's not going to work. You've got to get a timetable here. You've got to start putting this stuff out.
That's the only obstacle to the Stonewall strategy, is that if it were left up to the other parts of the administration, we would never get anything out of her at all. But it takes a judge, because there are a lot of suits out there about her emails, about Benghazi, and that's how we've learned stuff. That's how we learned stuff about the IRS. It's judges who don't like being trifled with who have insisted on this. And I must say that today's ceremony was quite striking. The Queen deigns to speak to the scribes of the realm. This is the most anticipated breaking of silence in the Anglo-Saxon world since Thomas More refused to pronounce himself on the marriage of Henry and Anne Napoleon. In the end, he did. And she had to also. This time it was Ed Henry who brought her out.
Let's talk about this New York Times piece today. And Big spread on this piece. A lot of words spent talking about Clinton friends' memos on Libya draw scrutiny to politics and business. This has to do with Sidney Blumenthal. Quote, while advising Mrs. Clinton on Libya, Mr. Blumenthal, who had been barred from a State Department job by aides to President Obama, was also employed by her family's philanthropy, the Clinton Foundation, to help with research, message guidance, and the planning of commemorative events, according to Foundation officials. During the same period, he also worked on and off as a paid consultant to Media Matters and American Bridge, organizations that helped lay the groundwork for Mrs. Clinton's 2016 campaign. Mr. Blumenthal sent Mrs. Clinton at least 25 memos about Libya in 2011 and 2012, many describing elaborate intrigues among various foreign governments and rebel factions. Here's what she said about that today.
It's important when you get into politics to have friends you had before you were in politics and to understand what's on their minds. And he's been a friend of mine for a long time. He sent me unsolicited emails, which I passed on in some instances. And I see that that's just part of the give and take. When you're in the public eye and when you're in an official position, I think you do have to work to make sure you're not caught in a bubble and you only hear from a certain small group of people. And I'm going to keep talking to my old friends, whoever they are.
What about that, George?
The solution to being in a bubble is to talk to an old friend like Sidney Blumenthal. Liberals believe in recycling, so we're going to recycle all these figures from the 1990s. The question really is, did her friend, Mr. Blumenthal, have business in Libya? That's part of the question we want answered. Also, every time the word Libya comes up in this campaign, it's got to be ruinous to Mrs. Clinton, because it was on her watch that we went in this completely optional war of choice that created a failed state in the middle of northern Africa.
Ron.
Look, Sidney Blumenthal, who for good reason was not allowed to work for the State Department, had business interests in Libya, and he was lobbying his friend in the State Department. That's an obvious conflict of interest. And how does she answer it? She talks about this bubble and how she wants to reach out to people outside the bubble who were friends of hers before she was in public life.
Unsolicited emails.
Yeah, unsolicited, right. Yeah, we'll find out if that's true. She's been in public life since 1978. She'd have to go way back to find a friend before she was a politician.
Charles.
What struck me is the fact that he wasn't only a friend, he was getting paid by the Clinton Foundation. He was a hire. When you're a friend of the Clintons, you join the business. The business is Clinton Inc. There's no distinction between the private, the charitable, and the public, and he's part of the business. And he tried to cash in on the business, apparently, because of his connection with the Libyan businessmen. And that's how the Clintons operate, always on the line, sometimes over the line, and when their people learn about it, they stonewall.
Before we go to break, a cruise ship sailing from Bermuda to Boston has lost power and run aground after leaving Bermuda. Norwegian Cruise Line says its ship, the Norwegian Dawn, temporarily lost power, struck the channel bed. It says no one was injured and power has been restored. That's a picture of the ship not run aground, but we are tracking that story as it's breaking. Next up, the politics and policy of the disaster in Iraq.